We're live.
Thank you. Our first order of business will be that the council elect a presiding member amongst the council members in council chambers, as Mayor McCordoff is away, and Councillor Bennett, who is the acting mayor, is also participating via Zoom. So we'll need a motion for a presiding member for this meeting.
I move Councillor Poderica.
Second.
We need an all in favor. Thank you, Councillor. Presiding member Poderica, you can call the meeting to order.
Thank you. So we'll call this meeting to order. At 2 o'clock. Approval of agenda and late items.
There are no late items.
Councillor Chong. Councillor King. Favor. Carried. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor Chong. Councillor King. Favor. Those carried. Perfect. Water matters. Water council the amount of $8,057.96 for approval. Second, Councillor Appleby, in favor. Carried. And the report expenditures from accounts payable to water district information dated August 15, 2022. We receive information. Annual water report, report from the operations technician.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Just here to present to you the TRU's 2022 Water System Annual Report. It's basically just an overview of the water system status in 2022 and how it compares to previous years and future plans for the system. Highlights from the report, municipal water consumption showed a 4.3% increase compared to 2021, mostly due to population and twinning. System 8 and 9 consumption decreased by 16%. Due to more precipitation in 2022 and twinning and grape production versus fruit farming. As a result of this report, we have moved ahead with exploration and development of water treatment plant and future wells. And that's about it.
Any questions? Oh, Councillor, Water Councillor Appleby.
Is there no, why do we have on page 5 of their report, page 33 of our book, maximum supply in US gallons per minute, and the rest of the chart shows liters per second? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like talking
Just two different,
Greek.
right? Well, obviously we're working liters per second, and US gallons per minute is kind of the standard for American Waterworks Association.
Can they, I'm not a math whiz, but can they not alter that and make it either one or the other to make it so it's readable to us laymen?
I suppose I could bring that up with the TRU.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
If you were
Thank
to, yeah, thanks for that comment. It would be much clearer if it was all consistent, and we'll provide them with that feedback so that next year they can make it more consistent if all possible.
Sure.
Thank you.
Am I on still?
Yeah.
I have more. The system 9, the old agricultural, it's slowly available, but agricultural pump number 9, system 9. Are we still chlorining it?
We are.
Why?
Jared?
Sorry, through the chair to
So our council will be, we continue to chlorinate both system 8 and 9. Chlorination helps with our biofilm buildup and allows us to continue to provide water that is easily used within the system. If we remove chlorine from either one of our surface intakes, our biofilm requirements go through the roof. And then we will start getting more and more concerns about filters being clogged. So we do maintain a chlorine residual just to keep that biofilm down.
So this is, okay, so that the chlorine helps keep the green stuff.
Yeah, keeps the green stuff from developing within the
into
pipe.
agricultural
Yeah.
filters.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Bear with me, please. On their page 23, our page 51. Operator certifications. I understand we've taken on a couple new people that aren't certified, but you're going to train them up in the house, which I appreciate. But it mentions under 6.6 that we have to stay in compliance with an operations permit. I want to know, I guess my question is do we have the correct people with the, or not the correct people, the people with the correct certificates to maintain our permit?
So currently we are in non-compliance with EOCP. So we are, I believe, down one water treatment operator. So from an agricultural perspective, we are in compliance in regards to their domestic system. We are working on it. This is in coordination with IHA, Interior Health Authority, as well as the EOCP. So they are aware. We have a training program in place and we will be compliant probably within the next 6 to 8 months.
So it's going to take us 16 months to get somebody.
6 to 8 months, just to get
6 to 8 months.
Yep.
Okay. And that the only part we're not in compliance with is the water
Water treatment.
water treatment part. Okay,
So our water distribution, we are completely compliant with.
okay, thank you. And, well, we received some graphs and I got page 39 here. I'm trying to deal with the paper and what I took off the internet here. And it's not going well. What it had to do with was the graphs of our water consumption. And it was alluded to in the verbal portion that was given to us. And I just don't have that graph in front of me.
System 8 and 9.
No, it was on the whole water for the town of Sawyers.
Total annual water consumption, this one?
Yes, that one. It's,
What page are we looking at?
just a second. It's True's page 11.
Our page 39 of 191.
Thank you.
It's alluded to that we increased our water consumption quite remarkably. I'm just, and the 218 and 219 figures are the graph measurement there. I thought we determined that our SCADA system was not operating properly and we didn't know what we actually were producing
So there is irregularities in our data collection in regards to our SCADA system. You are correct. We have not gone back in history to try to divulge exactly what's gone on. We just don't have the manpower and nor the resources to do that. So unfortunately, the graphs
So
remain.
just the graph is screwed up.
The graph may be screwed up. The graph may be accurate. We don't know unless we start doing deep dives into our data collection, and we just don't have the resources for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your question or comment? Hearing none. See this, motion to receive this information. Mr. Chong. Mr. King, in favor. Those carried. Next, correspondence report from the Okanagan Basin Water Board, from August 3rd, 2023, meeting highlights. Yes,
Can I respond to that?
absolutely.
I was not at the meeting because we were in the middle of a fire in Osoyoos, but I do note that the drought response level now in the Okanagan is at level 4. There are 5 levels in BC, and so many places are at level 4 and level 5, which is concerning. There is a drought response group as part of the OBWB, and they meet often to keep tabs on all of this. And the AGM for OBWB is on September the 8th. I will be attending, and the topic is tapping into water solutions. So I will provide more on that after the next meeting. Thank you.
Any question, comment? We just have motion that the correspondence to the Okanagan Basin Water Board on their August 3rd meeting be received and filed. Councillor Chong, Councillor King, all in favor, carried. Staff reports, community service grant policy. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. So the report here is in regards to the community services grant policy, FIN-001. And the recommendation is that council approve the community service grant policy, and that council requests that the grant evaluation committee review the comments from the Osoyoos Events Alliance and recommend changes to the community services grant policy and the resort municipality initiative for council consideration.
I'm just gonna bring, the CEO and I were having a discussion, and just so council is aware what the changes were to this policy. We did pull out, it was called administrative procedures, and we've pulled that out, and it will become its own administrative procedure. It shouldn't actually be included in a policy. So that was one of the changes. And then the other change was changing the date from February to October 31st as the request. So just so council is aware what the changes were to the policy prior to consideration.
Through the mayor. So looking at the options, then should we wait till we get all that information before we make a decision here?
No.
Or how do we make a good decision without information?
Which information? The policy is attached, so the new policy is attached with what it looks like. So council has the policy in front of them to approve if they so choose.
Yeah, maybe through the presiding officer. Presiding member.
Yeah.
Just so our issue with these grants and these policies, there's a few that are out there. So you'll notice there's 2 things here. The first is basically we're trying to align the dates to improve, I guess, the transparency and reduce duplication of all these grant applications. So that's what one of the things that administration is recommending today, so that both the municipal grant program and the RMI funding program have a due date of October 31st. So that's what the foundational piece of this was. The Alliance is requesting that several other potential changes be considered, and that can be done at a later date. And so This is to ensure that we can do the advertising and so that the consistency can occur for October 31st.
So I guess my question would be, when I look at other items we discussed, Mr. Chung was there at that committee meeting too. The main point that we discussed pretty heavy was the last dotted item there, create a point system. So maybe make a note that that could be discussed also when you come forward with the other. We need this policy changed.
Yes, so that's the intent that the Alliance had several bullet points that are included in the report that they.
These bullet points are nothing to do with the Alliance. These points. Some of these points come up at our grant committee.
Okay, and so
So-
that's good if they're all aligned. So basically what administration is recommending that all these things that you've heard over the years, plus the things that the Alliance have come in,
Mhm.
for that committee to do a little bit of the legwork to determine what is probably the best solution. What type of amendments should be made to the policy, and that those recommendations would then come forward to council. So this is just an approach of allowing some dialogue at the committee level to figure out what are some of the things that maybe should be considered in the policy. Once that dialogue occurs, the administration go back, incorporate them in policy, and it would come back to council for final approval. Does that help?
So would that relate to number 4 then? On the options?
Well, option 4 is the council may remain the status quo.
And make no changes at this time.
So, well, one of the things that what we've heard from the groups is that they would prefer to have an understanding as to whether they're successful or not in the grant applications. And so this change is kind of a Band-Aid. What's proposed here is a Band-Aid to have the due dates for the applications to be October 31st, which the RMI and the community grant would align on the same date. So this is kind of a quick Band-Aid solution.
So you're really telling me the only change is the date then in this whole policy?
There were two
Sure.
basic changes, the date, and we also removed some of the administrative pieces. So within the old policy, there was some administration type pieces which really shouldn't be in a policy document. So that was removed.
Yeah, we removed that.
And I know one of our practices is to typically use track changes.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's not here, so we could actually quickly grab the old policy for you to show you what was removed.
And then at our next committee meeting, we'll look over what changes we're going to make to the application process, and then we'll submit a recommendation to
Okay.
council, and then we'll make another motion to change that policy.
So there is a possibility that the first part of September, the committee could get together, start hashing out some of these things, and if all goes well, an amendment can come forward mid-September. If it's not so easy, then we'll have to continue with the application process and go through things like we've done in the past.
I guess one of the biggest comments was looking at funding source. And it's kind of a separate issue.
So I would say yes. So this policy is a selection process criteria and what funding, how funding can be distributed to groups and the application process. As far as if council wishes to amend the budgets to allocate additional funding, that could be done through a motion today for council direct administration to look at incorporating the 2024 budget additional funding for nonprofits, or you can wait till the budget deliberations, which are going to occur mid-September. You have a couple options. Or even the committee. I mean, one of the additional things that you could do is at the committee meets the first part of September, is you going through the whole process. Maybe you come up with that there should be some additional funding and make a recommendation from that committee to council during budget deliberations.
Because
They've got a bunch of options.
currently the policy change right now, as you stated, is just the date change. And then you remove some admin aspects. And then at our next grant committee meeting, we can talk about potentially a recommendation for increased RMI funding. And then modifications to the application process, and additionally, all the other notes, the other points that were raised by the Alliance, which is included in the report.
Yes.
Councilor Bennett? Oh, your mic's off.
Sorry, through the chair to the city hall. My understanding is we just want to change the date at this time, and other things we can move at the next committee meeting. So we not just change that date today, is that the important thing to get done at this time?
Through the chair, that is correct. That's the most important thing to get done is the date change so we can align both grant programs with the same deadline date.
So can we make a motion to that today?
Yeah.
Option one.
Yes, that's what administration is recommending. So if the recommendation is that council approve community services grant policy FIN 001 that's attached to this report, and that incorporates that change.
I move option one.
Councilor Chong? Motion, yeah, and seconder,
Your council.
Councilor Bennett? Okay, all in favor? Carried. And we a second motion on the second one, or we?
Included.
Yep, no, the second one would be a second, but maybe this is where council could amend the staff recommendation so that council requests that the grant evaluation committee review the comments from these use events. Oh, well, I guess I could say, that. Do you want them to about the budget too, or do you want to leave it?
Sure.
From the Sioux Events Alliance. And as well as reviewing the RMI budget allowance allocation,
RMI grant, municipal grant program.
municipal grant
The criteria, yeah. Okay. Is that the
budget,
criteria?
and then and recommend changes to the community service grant policy and the resort municipality initiative for council consideration, which is adding that one line
Yeah,
about the
sounds
piece
good.
of the funding.
Option two is amended. Councilor Chong, Councilor Bennett, all in favor? Those carried. All right. Next, developments variance permit, number 2303, 8214 97th Street, from, your plant technician.
Thank you. This report is to request council's acceptance of development variance permit application number 2303 and to authorize administration to proceed with the notification process, which advises of council's intention to consider issuance of development variance permit 2303 during the September 12th council meeting. Administration supports council's accepting the application in order to obtain input from neighboring properties about the proposed development variance permit. Zoning bylaw number 1085 in 1998 stipulate a rear lot line setback of 6 meters. The applicant is asking for a reduction to this rear lot line setback from 6 meters to 3 meters to install a grower modular farm system in his backyard. So this food production system will be using potable water. However, this form of greenhouses use less water than the conventional agriculture, approximately 2,500 liters per month. Note that the typical person consumes approximately 400 liters per day, or about 12,000 liters per month. The wastewater from this greenhouse would go into a holding tank that would pump up into the property's sanitary coming out of the residence on the west side, where there's an existing clean out. The estimated wastewater volume is projected to be around 2,500 to 3,500 liters per month, significantly less than the single family home uses in a month. No hazardous chemicals or waste or harmful products will be mixed in with this wastewater. Administration supports the requested variance subject to the input as mentioned. So our options today are option one, that the DVP be accepted and that council authorize administration to proceed with the notification process, or that council denies the application.
Thank you. Council's wish.
Is there a question? I presume this just backs onto other agricultural land, correct?
Correct.
I got one other question to Ms. Hilson, I thought I understand through the municipal act that towns are supposed to have a variance committee.
I can speak to that. Thank you, Councillor King, through the chair, acting Mayor Puerto Rica. So we're required to have a board of variance. So the difference between something going to a board of variance and to a development variance permit is very simple. A board of variance deals only with cases of hardship. And when it's a case of a request such as this for something that is a want rather than a need, it goes to a development variance permit.
And we don't have that board. Do we have that board if we need it?
We have a previous bylaw that advises that we would use the regional district board of variance. So we should probably update that. So we'll bring that forward at council meeting in September.
That would be
Thank you.
good, because then we've had a few variances and a few interests and discussions, not so much this because it's agriculture. I think there's no problem with this. But when you have neighbors and that we're asking for a variance, we get stuck with a hard decision. And I always thought there had to be some
Right.
type of committee.
Now, I appreciate what you're saying again through the chair. Again, since my time here, so 5.5 years, I have not had a variance request that I would consider acceptable to go to a board of variance, which is only used when it's a case of hardship for the individual. So to date, we have not received an application that would fall into that category. But as I say, we'll bring that forward for an update and more information on that in the next meeting.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions? None? Ricardo?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Option, whether that to be accepted?
Yes, and that a date be set to consider it on September 12th.
Seconder? Councillor King, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yeah, sorry, do we need the second one here as well? Okay, and the second, oh, and then now that the council authorized administration received the notification process, should advise the council's intention to consider issuance of its very permit number 2303 at the September 12th council meeting. Move that. So Chong, Councillor King, all in favor? That's carried. Contract award, preparation submission of a housing action plan for submission to the Housing Accelerator Fund CMHC program. Report from the Director of Planning and Development Services, Director King.
Thank you, Mayor. So my apologies, this report's a little bit late, as you'll recall from our meeting this morning, but of course, on June 13th, the committee of whole did review a report and did discuss the current town policies related to housing. And we also spoke at that time about various updates that we felt were needed to housing strategies, et cetera. And also the recommendation out of that meeting was that the committee recommend to council that a financial plan amendment be made in order to allocate the $20,000 to prepare an action plan to support an application to the Housing Accelerator Fund. So that, of course, is our recommendation today, that we advise that the $20,000 will come from funds in the community development. And of course, we did see the presentation this morning on this program. So the recommendation is that the financial plan be amended to allocate the $20,000 for the preparation of the application to submission to the Housing Accelerator Fund for under the CMHC program, and the funds be expended to the housing development stream.
Thank you. That's okay.
Yeah, question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It might be a hard question to answer, but do grants ever get turned down through these submissions?
Yes.
So
We could, again, through the chair, we could speak a little bit more to that under the next item on your agenda, if you like.
so I'll move option one.
Councillor King. Councillor Chong, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, the Housing Accelerator Fund report from the Pine Development Services, Director McKay again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, the recommendation here is that council support the submission of the town's application in the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation's Housing Accelerator Fund. And again, a presentation this morning, provide an overview of the action plan content that we're intending to submit on Friday through the CMHC portal with request to for funding to the town. And you'll recall that there was a number of action items on that. So just for clarification and further to this morning's discussion, the way it would work is that we would submit this to the federal government. And then if we are accepted into the program, we would have an itemized list of the different projects that we see would help to support an increase in housing densities in, again, that missing middle, or what we call it, sort of the medium density stream within our community. And then there will be a dollar value added to each of those. And then if we are to be accepted into the program, those individual contracts could be awarded to other persons other than the presentation today from Urban Systems. So that would be up to us to decide who we'd be looking at again for those contracts.
Thank you.
Well, you have one more question. The timeline to hear back from this is what, 90 days or 6 months or?
Thank you again, Councillor King through the chair. It would probably be before Christmas. So I'd say this fall. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Chung.
Thank you. And to clarify, I know we just moved the 20,000 for for the consultant. To clarify for the HAF, each HAF successful unit would provide approximately $20,000 in base funding from them, right?
Right. Thank you, Councillor Chong, again through the chair. So just to clarify, and if there's any other questions about the program. So if we are accepted into the program and we can demonstrate, for example, in the first year that we had an additional, say 20 units above the 20 that we would have projected to build anyway, in sort of the medium density areas, we would be eligible to claim the $20,000 per unit for each of those units above and beyond what we would anticipate to be integrated into the community. So the interesting thing about that is, if you notice today, we used an average over 10 years. And that's because, again, if we used it over 3 years, it would be very hard to get beyond that X number of units per year for the next 3 years. So if we expand that to the 10-year average, it makes more sense because it's a better representation of really what has been happening in our community.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, to the chair, to just a question on the 20,000. Is that $20,000? And then the application goes in, they keep it with a submission, and then everyone we do after that is including that 20,000? Or is that $20,000 just not to submission?
Again, through the mayor, Councillor Bennett, the $20,000 is for the work that we're doing that will be submitted on Friday.
So it's just a one-time.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And to further clarify, so if we build one unit, then we basically break even.
That is correct, Councillor Chung.
Wow. What a fantastic program.
And if I may say,
Our
if
projections.
if I may expand on that a little bit, Acting Mayor Paterica, the benefit of this particular program is we have some properties that we're already looking at, and we haven't started a project on them. So if we were to build just even 20 units on one of our properties within the next 3 years, we would get $20,000 for each of those units. In addition to that, as mentioned earlier today, you would also get the $19,000 per unit to a maximum of $39,000 per unit, because it would be if we built affordable units. So, and that money can be used for such things as street improvements, park improvements, infrastructure improvements to support housing. So it's pretty broad. Thank you.
I'll move option one.
Yeah, I'll second by Councillor King. The council support support the submission of the town's application to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation's Housing Accelerator Fund. All in favor? Carried, opposed, carried. Next, transit future action plans, or from the Director of Planning and Development Services, Director McKay again.
Thank you again, Mayor. So the recommendation here today is that Council direct administration to advise BC Transit and the Regional District of the Okanagan Similkameen that the town of Osoyoos requests that the transit improvement program for the expansion of local services to the town of Osoyoos be postponed to the 2025 budgeting process. Of course, you know, we do recognize the important role that transportation in and around our community and to Oliver and further on to Penticton is important. Again, for greenhouse gas reduction, but also just in support of our community members that may not have access to personal vehicles. And of course, it's a great way to get to Penticton. Now, this attached memorandum of understanding was signed by the Regional District of the Okanagan Similkameen, agreeing in principle to the expansion initiative to the 2024-2025 fiscal year, which would introduce the service within Osoyoos and Oliver. And what we're suggesting is that we be a little bit more prepared for it, and we request to push that out to a future year. Of course, this would be presented at the regional district to the board members there, and they would have final decision on that. But what BC Transit has suggested that we do is come and ask our council, and I understand the same thing will be happening at Oliver, so that our regional district board members can understand our position and that we're considering pushing this out, or council's considering pushing this out to a future budgeting year. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess when we first passed it, we must have been kind of prepared to move forward. Now you're suggesting we're not quite ready, or is it a budget issue, or what's the rationale of moving it?
Thank you, Councillor King. Well, what happened was the large scale, the transit plan itself was prepared and supported by the town with no actual years in that transit plan. So the way it works at BC Transit, as I understand it, and trust me, it's complicated.
It is.
We would, assuming that the regional district board wanted to support this moving forward within the next year, then BC Transit goes to the provincial government and asks the provincial government if they have funds to support the program. So it's kind of they're kind of working ahead themselves. So at the time that council supported the overall transit initiative, the different years for the implementation of the different steps were not part of the program.
So what I'm hearing, we could suggest we move this a year, but we still get overridden by the RDOS.
That could happen, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Further questions, Councillor John?
Thank you. Do we have data on ridership volume or anything like that?
Thank you, Councillor Chung. We do have some data on ridership volume, and it has expanded. I apologize that I did not bring that with me today. I'm not sure if CO Risling brought it either, and I apologize for that. However, I will say that ridership is up, but this ridership this particular program is for transportation in and around the community. Not so the data that we would have would be the number of persons using the transit system to travel between here and Oliver and Penticton. So it wouldn't sort of jive with what this expansion program is aimed at providing.
Question as well, Dr. McKay. The estimated net municipal share, is that per community in South Okanagan, or is that just combined?
Well, thank you. That is a very good question. So it is combined between ourselves and likely just Oliver. So in other words, we don't know what the division might be on that proposed $195,000, but they're suggesting that that would be split between the two user groups would be Osoyoos and Oliver, and the distribution of that funding has not yet been determined. I'm not sure. CO Risling has any other comments to that effect, but that's our understanding.
Yeah, I think there was one more piece, I believe. They also use population counts in this, an assessment, I believe. And I did believe that area A would actually contribute some. That was, but yeah,
I'm not,
Member Carter?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a little bit confused with this as well, because if they're asking Oliver Asuyas, for instance, to contribute $195,000, certainly the RDOS should not be able to have a say that we have to spend that. When it's money coming from our community, I think we have more of a say in that. Am I correct, CAO Risling? And has it been brought up at the CAO table? Because to me, this doesn't sit right. And I don't think anybody else at the regional district should be able to tell Oliver Asuyas, yes, you have to pay this amount. That doesn't seem fair or sensible.
I will add a couple of comments and then perhaps CO Risling would like
Okay.
to as well. I think the reason that it's included at this particular time is this is a regional transit plan.
Mhm.
However, this particular service is only within our communities. Now, CO Risling may be correct about the area A contributing at some point in some way, but this is a service that's specifically aimed at ours and the all of our communities. So that's why we've been advised that we would be the ones contributing the lion's share for this particular service.
That's okay.
So thank you, Commissioner. So when you say it's mainly to hopefully increase our service in town, then it actually includes Oliver?
It's an Oliver Asuyas service, so it includes one or two more vehicles, and then three additional vehicles, and then it would be in and around here, so it would connect to the 240, for example, which goes to Penticton.
So it's a different service than the 240.
Correct.
Okay. I'll move option one.
Seconder? Mr. Bennett? All in favor? So the council direct administration advised Visa Transit Regional District of Okanagan Subcommittee that town of Cius requests that the transit improvement program for the expansion of local services to the town of Cius be postponed until the 2025 budget process. And carry. Next, requested waive penalty folio 00077.022, report from the Director of Financial Services.
Sorry.
That's right.
So.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, before council is the 5-year financial plan bylaw. 1381.
Sorry, the request waive penalty.
Oh, thank you. Different subject. So before us is a request from the property folio number 77.022 at 303 7310 Main Street. This property owner has requested that their property tax penalty be waived. Property tax due date was the 4th of July. This property was not paid until I believe it was in August. Property taxes were mailed out in the middle of May. And they allege that they didn't receive their tax notice in the mail for 2 months. We mark on our property tax notices and provide the details that postmarks are not accepted as proof of purchase. Property tax owners do know that they pay taxes every year and the due date. Staff has been also very diligent when it comes to respect collection of property taxes or getting the information out to the property owners. And if there's a mistake made by staff, we remedy that for the taxpayer. But in this case, there's nothing that town has done erringly. It's not the town's responsibility on the mail system. And the recommendation before council is to deny the request, and the reason being is we've established by law 1385 under section 194 of the community charter, which basically is to establish the penalty. We would set a real difficult precedent if we start considering waiving penalties when there hasn't been something done wrong from the town. And at this point in time, I'll pass it to council.
Thank you. Councilor Chung.
Thank you. Has this due date been changed in the past?
The due date was changed during COVID to grant an extension of time.
Mhm.
I believe it was only for the first year, and then we reverted back to the July 4th due date. So it was just that 1 year anomaly that we had with respect to that. So that's pretty much it.
Move option one.
Councilor Chung. Councilor King, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Next, the General Assembly Arena and payroll accounts, cash requirements to August 15, 2023, representing balances in the following amount. Following funds amount to general account, $2,447,573.13. Assemble Arena of $101,103.58. And payroll accounts of $267,674.01. Payroll report attached to the payroll account clerk.
Move option one.
Chairman Cordoff, Councilor Chong, those in favor? Opposed, carried. And the building report, permit report for the month of July 2023. Receive information. That's strong. Chairman Cordoff, those in favor? Carried. Bylaws at the 5-year financial plan amendment, bylaw 1381-02-2023, consideration of adoption. Anyone in attendance today would like to speak on the 5-year financial plan, they may do so. They do have 5 minutes to speak if they so wish. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to the 5-year financial plan? Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the bylaw now is before council for consideration of adoption. The changes that we've made is there was a project missed from the 2022 carry forward budget of the Sonora Room 1 upgrade. We also added the streetlight upgrades with the funding coming from the Growing Communities Fund grant. We had reallocated RMI funding for the 85th Street Plaza. We had updates to our collection and transfers of taxes. And under the fire protection, we updated the accounts with respect to that to adhere to the 2023 revised assessment rule. So I'll pass it back to council for consideration of adoption of the financial plan amendment bylaw.
Thank you. Chairman Cordoff.
I'll move that we adopt that plan. Thank you. Bylaw.
Second by Councilor Bennett. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, zoning amendment bylaw 1085.146, 2023, consideration of first 2 readings. Report again from the planning technician.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. This report is for zoning bylaw amendment number 1085.146, 2023 for 6014 51st Street. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning for the subject property to accommodate a boat storage for 50% of the subject property and enhance the current business on the property, which is a boat repair and spa service. The applicant is applying for a site-specific text amendment to allow for the outdoor storage of boats. On, as mentioned, the 50% of the property. The subject property is currently zoned M3, which is special industrial, and is designated as general commercial in the official community plan. The M3 zone is specific to the area between Lakeshore Drive and 51st Street, and the zone permits repair shops, manufacturing plants, and car washes. Please note that as part of the zoning bylaw update, consideration will be given to aligning the zone with the official community plan designation of general commercial. This would support the current use of the area, which includes a distillery, restaurant, and service uses, but would remove uses such as log home manufacturing. Should the application be accepted and first and second reading be granted, administration is proposing a public hearing be held on September 12th, 2023, following the required notification process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bennett? Mic's off.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Bennett. Councilor Bennett, Councilor Chung, all those in favor? Opposed, carry, and that's
1A.
yeah, 1A, yeah. And that's the second motion there,
Move 1B.
Councilor King, that the zoning amendment number 1085-146 has to be read for a first and second time. Seconded by Councilor Chung, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Next, the zoning amendment bylaw 1085-144, 2023, consideration of adoption of 7808 Spartan Drive. Report from the Director of Planning and Development Services.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Poderica. Council will recall that we have visited this property before, namely at the public hearing, which was held on March 28th, 2023, in consideration of an amendment to the zoning bylaw to allow for an increase in the number of units on the CD 13 zone at 7808 Spartan Drive. The details of the development proposal can be seen in the report, of course. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. At this time, I would like to point out, however, that the operational services and fire services have noted that their interests are affected, and more details on that can be seen in the municipal servicing section of this report. And note also that the inclusion in the proposal is a contribution to the our parking fund in the amount of $37,500, and final approval, of course, of any building permits moving forward would be subject to complete servicing drawings, et cetera, that will be reviewed internally and externally for compliance with all bylaws and code requirements. Thank you.
Mayor McCarthy?
Yeah, thank you. I note in the report that suppression efforts at the rear of the property are a concern. And I'm not sure how that can be resolved. We do not at this point have a ladder truck, which is tall enough for that. And I'm not sure whether this report gives enough information on that. And the other thing that concerns me, of course, is the parking. It always has. And I see that because that it's in the town zone, that they do not have to have visitor parking. And that's another concern of mine. I understand that there's going to be some money. To my mind, it's a paltry amount for not having any visitor parking. However, I agree there is parking along the street, but those two things still stick in my craw about this particular development. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned about it, but I'm not sure whether the rest of council feels the same way. Those two things bother me.
Yeah. Any questions? That's okay.
Can we move this so we can get more information from the other two departments?
I do not believe that I can bring more information forward to council, as that would constitute information after a public hearing. Comments in the report are the comments received from those departments.
Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna check. So, yeah, we're just gonna, if council wants to make a motion to table this, we'll look into it and we can, maybe bring it back, later on in this agenda.
I'll move that. Okay, Councillor King, Councillor Chong, in favor? Okay. Next, building code administration amendment bylaw 1251 2023, consideration of adoption. All right.
I'll say that acting Mayor Paterica, there is no report with this. We're just looking for adoption of the amending bylaw, which would allow for an increase in the building permit fees, which we discussed at a previous council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Bennett, Mayor Ricardo?
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. All right. And moving on to report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, presiding member and council. The last few weeks have been a little bit hectic. We've had obviously an event that has will be memorable for all of us. And I just want to compliment not only our wonderful staff. I don't think people understand just how much staff time is involved in something like that. Definitely the fire crew is front and center. There's also a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on with the public works, the Sonora Center staff, a bylaw. So it really is a group effort. Even so some of those that get allocated to the incident itself, there's people in the background that have to pick up some of that slack. So I just want to do a bit of a kudos to the entire group and what they did. Also want to thank RDOS and the multiple other agencies that assisted the community in a time of need. And obviously with the end result, it couldn't have really been better considering the situation of no structures and no lives lost. So very scary event, but really the outcome couldn't have been much better. So again, I want to thank our staff, and I don't even have a list of all the outside agencies that assisted us. Also want to do a thank you to the community. There were so many businesses that came out to support. We know of at least 26. I'm not going to list them all because it's probably not all inclusive of those that assisted in providing meals and other support. So it's just really shows what this community is made of. And so it's just like a great community effort in a time of need, and can't really speak high enough about that. As far as operations, the child care needs assessment has been awarded to Cornerstone Planning Groups. That's a critical step in our ongoing efforts to potentially seek additional grant funding for additional child care facility. So that's we're hoping to have that completed before year end. I'm also getting closer to the park assessment in Charette. That is going to, the proposal is being circulated, so hopefully it's out soon, and hopefully that review is completed prior to year end. There's also been a lot of work, get back to the fire incident, and Sonora Community Center was host to ESS for a day or two. And also the Sun Bowl Arena was the staging area for a lot of the out of town fire departments and other services. So busy group of community services over the last couple of weeks. Or an operational side, Sunbull Skating Club School is running this week. Hockey camp this week, and minor hockey conditioning camp is over the next 2 weeks. So the arena is being used. On a bylaw side, I just want to inform people that they're out doing park patrols, traffic patrols, and again, another friendly reminder for people that along our parks that dogs should be must be on a leash. That still seems to be an issue out there. And water conservation and water metering is still an issue. Last month there was about 76 violations, and this month so far we have about 46 that we've been able to identify. Now it's important to note that the initial fine is $300 and go up to $1,000. So it's something that we're continue to enforce. And so that's where we're at. As far as from financial services, the water district billings are due August 15th. So today, so hopefully everybody gets in to ensure that they're not charged additional late fees. Budget presentation preparations are well underway, as you heard earlier today. Business licensing, we have one new business license in town. It's Honeydew. With Tanya and Alex. More from an operational services perspective, back to the fire, there was a line break due to wildfire onlookers. I don't think people understand how important it is to stay clear of these sites that are active with fire and the public works crews. It's one of the things that's considered by BC Wildfire, and when they recommend whether there should be an evacuation alert or evacuation, it's the equipment that goes on behind the scenes, and it's so critical that people pay attention to those alerts and evacuations, as any people that are in the areas do hinder their ability to deal with the more significant issues at hand. So I can't get that message out enough. Even though we've gotten through this situation, it was an issue as we went through the fire over the last couple of weeks. And a little bit of a kudo to the golf course. They assisted dramatically keeping their irrigation system on. It kept the greens wet and assisted in keeping the fire from coming from that side to Dividend Ridge. Public Works did a lot of work with the golf course as well as the industrial park area to ensure that everything is kept safe. Lamp standards, you may have noticed over the last couple of weeks, a lot of the lamp standards got replaced, so they look great and now they're safe. And from a capital perspective, 85th Street Plaza, the RFP closes August 24th. Flood mitigation projects, the project scopes are being defined, so we're getting closer to having that process completed. Water metering, that RFP is in a close September 19th. And water treatment plant, which everybody's waiting for, there's been some pre-design discussions, and hopefully a pilot project will start within the next few months here. So that summarizes the administration report. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Motion to receive CEO report for information. Councillor King, Councillor Chong, all in favor? Carried. Next council reports, Councillor King.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was kind of interesting on August 27th, council and all mayors and staff actually went through a safety training program put on by the RDOS, which I think was very beneficial because 2 days later, there was the big fire. So that was really of interest. Also on August 1st, attended the Community Service Advisory Committee meeting. There was some updates on where we hope to move some project forward. And also this past Friday night, was down at Gyro Park for Music in the Park with the Navy band playing. There's a great turnout, and really thanks to all the volunteers that put all great events on in the community. That's my report.
Thank you. Hey, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. Just July 27th went the same. Me as Councillor King for emergency operations seminar, and then August 7th Trails in Okanagan. I just want to also thank everybody in the community for all the stuff they've done regarding the forest fire. There's so many people, fire department, administration, volunteers, RSNP, community members and we can go on and on. So just great job, everybody. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Chung.
Thank you. Echoing a lot of the same sentiments. It's really amazing to see the community come together in a time of crisis. And to also a ton of thanks to the staff and our frontline firefighters and all the support. It was an amazing effort and a great result as well. So that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. And on let's check the calendar here on this, obviously July 27th, I also attended the EOC for elected officials training. We attended remotely. Good timing for it. It's 48 hours later. We had some of the answers to some of our questions. Yeah, obviously thanks to first responders, municipal staff who worked to get EOC up and running, emergency social services, our neighboring municipality members who assisted on the firefighting side, as well as BC Wildfire Service. And it's good that we were able to hit it fast and minimize the destruction to property lines. So that's my report. Mayor Corda.
Thank you very much. So I think I'm not going to repeat everything because I know we're all super appreciative of everything that's gone on. I just think it just showed cooperation, working together, and we had a really good outcome despite having a dire situation. And the one thing that kind of bothered me was when I saw things on the news, sometimes they were 24, 48 hours late in reporting. And I found that a little disconcerting because we had made some headway and that wasn't reported. However, our town staff in every department did an amazing job. Plus our businesses, our fire rescue service, our RCMP, town EOC worked above and beyond, hour after hour after hour. And I do know that some people who were supposed to be on holidays, not me, I'm not talking about me this time, I'm talking about some of our staff, were working weekends. And it just shows that, people are putting Osoyoos first. And so I'm hoping that they will take some time off to get some holidays now. I want to thank Minister Sajjan, our Federal Minister of Emergency Operations, who came and visited, and MP Cannings, who was down here twice, who came and had a look with the fire department at what has gone on up at Dividend Ridge. It was a phenomenal sight to see. Minister Ma, who's the provincial minister of emergency preparedness, phoned me on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock. I happened to be in the EOC. That was the first night. Offered her help in any way. The same with Minister Kang. And I've been on a couple of meetings on Zoom meetings and phone meetings with Minister Ma and Minister Kang. And they're very, very helpful in offering support, even some money on some of the things. So that's a good thing to look after, because we needed to have a state of local emergency in order to get equipment and money for this event. And it happened pretty quickly. The regional district EOC did an amazing job as well. So thanks to everybody, including staff, including council, including businesses, local residents. Phenomenal that after less than 48 hours after a major fire went through their neighborhood, that residents were allowed to return back at Dividend Ridge. That's pretty amazing. So the other thing is, I understand it's not quite, I'm not in Osoyoos right now, but I am in a warm place. But it's not quite as warm as Osoyoos. So I'm hoping that if you need to, people in town will go to the cooling center, which is at the Sonora, and go to the splash park, go in the lake. I know it's the warmest lake in Canada, but it probably is pretty refreshing right now, despite the heat. So thank you to everybody. And that's my report.
Thank you. Are we going back to
Tourism? Yeah, through the presiding member, we're still doing some research, so council does have the ability to go into in camera, and at the conclusion of the in camera session, re-debate the item that was tabled.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that included in the original motion?
It was included in the original motion, so the council meeting still hasn't ended until after the in camera. Just before it gets terminated, we can deal with that issue.
Well, that pursuant to section 91 of the community charter, part of the council meeting may be closed to public if the subject matter being considered related to or one or more of the following. 1, section 90C, labor relations and other employee relations. 2, section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. 3, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at the preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And 4, section 91M, a matter that under another enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting. And 5, section 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and the provincial government or the federal government or both, or between the provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. Motion to move in camera. Councilor Chung, Mayor Corda, all those in favor? That's being moved in camera.